Welcome to Investors Coffee Shop. We're your host, Brian Harte.
Waneta Jaikarran.
I have been working in the financial industry for over 17 years. I started in New York City and in 2010 expanded my business to Alexandria, Virginia.
I have 3 years of experience in the financial industry. I have written articles that has been published on MarketWatch, Associate Press, Morningstar, and many more.
Investors Coffee Shop is for people who want to learn more about investing, make better decisions, create new streams of income.
Each episode, we will discuss investing in real estate, stocks, bonds, art, antiques, wine, collectibles, and anything that may generate a profit.
Join us at Investors Coffee Shop. All right, thanks for everybody joining us for episode number 4. So we have a different type of investment going on here we're going to talk about this evening. Pokemon. It's not just a kid's game. People are making serious money on Pokemon investments. You may not be aware of this, but Pokemon is a card game that started in Japan. And since then, it has blown up in the American culture. Wizard of Coast produced and distributed the game for the American market from 1998 to 2003 into where we are today. But back in 1996, when it first created, it was called Pocket Monster for all the people who do know a lot about this. And the values have skyrocketed for this children's game. So it's no longer just for children. This is for adults. And we have a special guest today. He's coming all the way from Chicago. He called in. I see him at different conventions. He knows his stuff. We're lucky to have him. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce my guest. So go ahead and take it from here and tell everyone who you are.
Well, my name is Zaki Said. I'm obviously from Chicago, like Brian mentioned. I've been in collectible card games for 20 plus years already. I used to play competitive cards. It led me to learning about the game, and through there, I was following trends and stuff like that, and it led me to buy and sell and trade. Eventually, I figured out a market for stuff, and I've been going ever since. And now I have a business, collectible card game, and action figures. I have a bunch of good friends who do this, who have been in it for 20 plus years the same, and that's where I'm at today.
And if people wanted to purchase, let's say, any types of these cards and things like that, how do they get a hold of you?
Specifically me, we're on all socials. The website's www.brokerobot.com. We're on Instagram at brokerobot.com. Toys at brokerobot and Instagram.com.
My son introduced me to the Pokemon. I'm 45 years old. It wasn't big when I was growing up. It became a thought thereafter. My son's 8 years old, and I met him in Chicago, and he guided me in the right direction. And when I got home with the cards, my son loved every one of the cards and said, that is the guy to always talk to. He knows what he's talking about. So that's why I had to call him. I said, we have to do this podcast and everything else. But a lot of the information, Waneta, who is my co-host here, normally you hear my voice speaking most of the time. Today, you're actually going to hear her. She's in her 20s. She understands this way better than I do.
Well, that's because I watch Pokemon. I grew up on it.
I didn't even know it was a TV show until recently.
Didn't know it was a TV show?
Not until my son Oliver showed me a Pokemon Go app and a Pokemon app that on Apple TV you can watch all the additional shows.
When that app came out, there was stopping traffic, causing accidents, just to catch an imaginary Pokemon on New York or Central Park. It was insane.
Yes, I heard people got hit by cars trying to catch these things.
Yeah. So, you're missing out, Brian. You're definitely missing out.
I am, but now I'm a buyer. Yes, but I've been buying these cards now, and I've watched the appreciation. And considering the stock market, we're recording today when the market has dropped 35% for the NASDAQ. The Dow Jones is down over 20%. Yet Pokemon cards seem to beat that trend. I'm sure there's a slowdown, but it doesn't seem like it yet. So, Waneta, why don't we take it to you and let's ask what we need to know.
Well, we know how Brian got into Pokemon. How did you get into Pokemon?
Oh, it was the 5th grade, honestly. And one of my buddies happened to like he had told me that he had made like a terrible trade, and the kid wouldn't do trade backs. Apparently, that was a big rule back in the day, no trade backs.
Hmm.
So I did like try to facilitate a trade back to the best of my ability, and it ended up working. And my friend showed me the card, and it was a Charmeleon card, and I've never seen Pokemon cards before. Never heard of it till then.
Oh, they were
Um,
cheap. Buy them.
they were. They were like $2, and I remember my dad used to give me some money, and I used to go to the 7-Eleven that was like 16 blocks from my house. And as a kid, that's, trekking through the desert basically.
So, what is the best way to invest in Pokemon?
There's multiple ways, honestly. You can't go wrong about any which way. You can buy sealed product and crack it. You can buy them straight from Amazon or Walmart or through, the biggest and the best way to support the game is going through your local card stores and purchasing product from there, singles as well.
I didn't know they still sell it at the car store. I thought it was just like on eBay now.
You can, like you can get deals on eBay and stuff like that, but going to your local card stores, you'll find cards that you're probably looking for, and it's better to start buying what you know
Okay.
than going online and hoping to get something.
So, what are the things that you avoid when you're looking for?
Particularly damage,
Water damage, quality damage?
any type of damage. It
Mhm.
depends on the card, really. Particularly if you're a collector, I guess it doesn't matter the condition, but I used to play cards, Yu-Gi-Oh, and stuff like that. So the condition matters, and obviously, for the overall value of the card, the closest it is to mint, the better.
Well, speaking about which Waneta brought up here, ways to buy them. I know Target and Walmart, and during COVID, there were fistfights over these cards that they were selling there to the point where Target said, enough's enough. We're not going to sell Pokemon anymore. Is that still a trend, you think? I mean, why are people fighting each other over these cards?
Well, at the time, scarcity. So that was a factor. Also, the fact that there were so many people posting on social that they were making money, and Pokemon was trending. And it's different. I can't speak for everybody, but sometimes people get in a frenzy. But that was back then. But now it's readily available. I'm pretty sure you can go to your local Target or Walmart and find the shelf stocked with product. So they're doing a better job of re-releasing product and making it more available for the masses.
Do you think the value of the Pokemon cards will decrease? I mean, they're printing so much of it constantly. I feel like that might decrease some value of the.
So some of the newer sets, over time, they'll increase in value. Right now, just because it's so readily available, prices are what they are, and also it affects prices. They're using competitive play, right? So if they're being used right now, they're probably at their highest. But if it's an older card, let's say 10 to 15 years, those usually retain their value or if not go up.
And if you were to buy the cards, I know people buy them in the packs or 10 sets, and I saw at your booth you had tons of ways to buy these. Is it better as an investor to buy packs that are unopened and keep them unopened, or is it better to open the packs and see what's inside?
So Pokemon, if you're going to be a long-term investor, it's better to buy sealed and keep it sealed. And if you can wait on your money, then that's a good strategy. But with Pokemon and like many other of the card games, there's multiple ways for you to make your money off of buying and breaking open packs. So you can sell to like individual card vendors who are purchasing individual cards for various prices. So that's one way. You can package them up and sell them online as lots because lots are very popular and people love a lot of cards for very little. And then there's just selling the higher end cards like the Charizards and the Mewtwo's and Blastoise and stuff like that individually.
And then my son Oliver loves to talk about Pokemon cards. He was very excited. He discovered he had promo cards. Are
Uh-oh.
promo cards really worth the investment? Is it just an excitement to see a promo card? What is that entailing? I didn't understand the excitement when he said, Daddy, this is a promo card. This is worth more than the average. Is that true, or what's the deal with promo cards?
So there's many various promo cards, and the method of getting them changes their value. So some promos are like free that come with like a starter deck or something you purchase at Target, but then there's others that you can win in a competition, or they have a limited release at like GameStop, or they're giving them away on a website. So promos, just to clarify, they're various promos. I'm sorry, but yeah, that does affect their price over time, or just in general because of the scarcity of the promo or the release would affect the price greatly.
So as an investor, should I be hunting down promo cards?
If you can get them cheap, yes, but no, generally stick to like the current set that's released or the set before that and try to, purchase those cards, or you find a great deal on older cards, obviously.
Older, like in 2000s, or
Anything made by Wizards of the Coast generally is good.
okay.
So that's your base set, your fossil packs, your jungle packs. Those are the ones you want.
You kind of like reminded me of this story that I read about Logan Paul when we were talking about keep the cards sealed. When he went and bought a pack of first grade Charizards, I believe, for 3.5 million, and then someone on YouTube started debunking the entire thing out of 6 videos, saying that how the boxes were totally fake, weren't real, those weren't real cards. And then he went and he opened the boxes, and it turned out it was baseball cards and a bunch of like other random cards inside of those boxes. Uh, so, do you think people should be spending, I don't know, that kind of money if they're not sure about the authentication of what's inside?
This is tough just because, this, like any investment, if don't invest what you don't have. But if you have it and you got money to burn, Pokemon is a really good investment. The only problem with a situation like that is he's not an expert himself, and they just thought they were going to get, pull a fast one on him, and they did, and they were successful.
Yeah.
That's not the case for everybody because not everybody has money like that. But in general, you want to stick to verified goods. There's plenty of ways to verify it. Like most of the things that are on Amazon or like StockX or Walmart or Pokemon Center are all direct from Pokemon. So you can be assured that your product is really good. Um, but you got to be careful like the gas station packs and stuff like that. That's where I would avoid.
When speaking about the values of these cards, would you recommend people getting them graded or just leaving them as they are? What makes the value more, in your opinion? And if you are going to get it graded, who do you go to get it graded?
Hmm. With grading, me personally, I rather just purchase graded cards from somebody else as opposed to me sending my cards. One, because as an investor, it takes too long for them to grade your cards, especially with, I'm pretty sure everybody's heard with the recent news, PSA is a grading service.
Hmm.
That's one of the longest tenured grading services out there. But after the boom in Pokemon and, collecting in general, they had a massive back catalog, so that affected everybody getting their cards, thus increasing the prices on stuff because they were only releasing a little bit back into the public at a time. Um, so there's that. So I don't really use them, but it's great if you can get them. Also, if you have a great condition card that you think doesn't have any visible signs of damage or any wear, and you want to just have it forever, then grading it is a great service. There's plenty of them that are out there. The longest tenured one obviously is PSA. There's other ones, upcomers like CGC. Beckett's another good one. And if you do your research, there's a lot of different ones.
In the comic book industry, CGC is king. And the values with CGC grading is always 30 or 40% higher than the other people who grade, even if it's the same grade. Would you say PSA is the leader, even though CGC is entering this force? Or would you say now that CGC is entering, that they're going to end up becoming the leader and that's who you should go with?
In terms of who's the leader, they're pretty much up there. And I know one of them, I can't tell you exactly specifically which one, but one of them has a higher grading system for a pristine condition one, a pristine 10. So those cards that they grade are highly sought after. I, I don't think you can go wrong with either one. And for your investment, it's graded cards are always good, regardless. And in terms of who could end up being better for the prices, I say PSA just because they've got their foot in the door longer.
And then Waneta was telling me the other day, there's this famous guy who wore a necklace with a Charizard, right?
Yeah, it's Logan Paul.
Logan Paul. Would you say Logan Paul is pushing the prices up by doing a stunt by wearing a Pokemon card as a necklace at a basketball game? Am I correct?
It was a boxing game.
You see?
A boxing match.
Like there was a Pikachu illustrator that just sold last year for $5.27 million. That seems like a lot for a card that just came out from, I don't know which year that one came out, so it's not a Babe Ruth, it's not a Mickey Mantle, it's not an Honest Wagner, and it's not the first Spider-Man. How can we justify price going for over $5 million now on something people paid $1 a pack or $2 or $3 or $5 a pack?
So I think there's two questions in there. The Logan Paul thing, anytime a celebrity, attracts anything, like they're into anything, it creates hype. And particularly for the card that he saw was like the Charizard. But I'm pretty sure he's also the same one who owned the Pokemon Illustrator, the Gray 10. He's the other one who bought that one. That one particularly, you couldn't pull that one out of a pack. That one is a promo. So going back to your promo question from earlier, some promos are just worth an obscene amount of money, like the Pokemon Illustrator card that I think Logan Paul purchased.
Promo is where it's at.
It is if you can afford it, for that one especially. But yeah, that one was just a limited release. That's why it is so expensive. And to get it in a Gray 10, being as old as it is, it's like I can't even think about it. It's crazy.
I think that card, they only made 41 that was ever made. Then the second one that did really well was in 1999. It was the first edition of a Shadowhawks holographic Charizard number 4, which sold this year for $420,000. So these are cards people didn't pay $420,000. That's what they're selling for now. Am I correct?
Yes, if you have some of them like that. Some people are collectors, and they've had, there's probably some we're going to see coming up as time, goes on, that people have just kept for years. So it could, affect the market greatly later. But yeah, you never know when one of these are going to come up. These are the big whale sales. It's very rare to see them. When they do, it does something to the market.
So if you're investing, how do you know when one of those come up to buy it, I guess? How do I know which characters are going to be the next it? Is there a way to know that?
It's better if you stick to iconic cards. Majority of the people know who they are: the Pikachus, the Mewtwo's, the Charizards. So it's better to invest in those. When it comes to like newer Pokemon, you can see set lists, and it can tell you what the breakdown of the rarity of the cards are going to be. So you can kind of gauge the market on that. And another way is there are these websites, namely TCG Player, and my website brokerobot.com, where like it'll we put the cards on pre-order. They'll give you a general gauge of how much that card's going to be based on if it could be used for competitive play, or it's one of, like I mentioned, the iconic cards, i.e. a Charizard, a Blastoise, a Mew, or a Lugia, for instance.
And what trends seem to be more valuable? So if I'm going to collect, should I start buying energy cards? Should I start buying trainer cards? I mean, what cards as a first-time investor, if I want to step my toe in this, or do I just buy Pikachu because he's all over anime and he's all over the shows?
As a beginning investor, the best way to get in is to study the market and then figure out what's best for you to invest in. Like I mentioned, sticking to iconic cards is probably the easiest route, and then you can, defer from there. Particularly like Pikachus. There are some Pikachus that are worth a couple of dollars, and based on whether or not they can be played or not, it'll affect their value. Sometimes just having a card because it made an appearance in a show or there's a particular trainer in it, you can do that. And that's, covering every type of card, because trainers are usually good if you're into a particular trainer. Like people are a big fan of Misty's or Brock, who's a trainer, so they collect those, and some of those are actually worth money. For energy cards, you really want to stray away from those. unless you're playing competitive, you don't really need energies. Energies aren't really worth a ton of money. But I would just stick to character cards, iconic cards, and sealed product for a beginning investor, and then checking the prices on eBay and on Amazon and seeing what you're willing to pay for something. Because like any investment, you got to determine what's best for your money.
So funny that you brought up the trainers because right now in my mind, I'm like living through my glory days as a child watching like the first Pokemon cartoon TV show that ever came out and Brock was there, Misty. And I'm like, love the classics, right? um, but I was just wondering, do you think that there's a bubble around Pokemon cards? Because everything seems to be like there's a bubble.
I can't say for certain if there is right now or there isn't, but like in anything, there could be. And Pokemon, like anything else, has the potential that it could, that its bubble could burst. But right now, the market's pretty steady. People are making money. There's a lot of big deals happening in the digital sense, and but like on a personal one-on-one basis, like I mentioned before, your local gaming stores, depending on who they are, they're doing a lot of business with Pokemon or just TCG in general. For those that don't know what TCG is, just the trading cards. So I don't think it is right now, but it potentially could. So
Have you like invested in the NFTs for the Pokemon cards, or is it just the cards?
me particularly, in terms of Pokemon, I like to have like the physical because that's what people want. I haven't really done too much research if there's digital NFTs for Pokemon. I just think the people who were into Pokemon or who are getting into Pokemon, want the card because the card is king, honestly.
I've looked into the NFTs. It's not the same as owning like the actual thing and feeling it in your hand.
I gotta ask. So when people come to you at conventions and things like that, so they have a price in mind, obviously, and they're always going to want to get a better price or what it may not be. But how do you look up the values of these Pokemon cards? Where do I go to even see what something's worth, and how do I know what it's worth?
So to get a good valuation on most cards, particularly if it's a bigger card, I would check eBay first. That would give you a good range. eBay completed listings would give you a good range of what your card's going for. Then another website that people use is tcgplayer.com. You can search any card and you can see pictures of your particular card on their website. So then you can see, cross reference from what you're actually seeing physically and what you have on TCG Player that you're looking up. So those are the two best ones that I would use for finding values for your cards. Now, if it's graded, it's kind of iffy because graded cards can go, depending on the card, it's like name your price. But eBay for that is completed listings is what I would use specifically for graded stuff.
And then when buying these cards, like comic books, I always tell people, and that's a big thing I can talk about is comic books because I know a lot about it, and that's how we ended up meeting was at a comic book convention. But what I know is most comics, 90% become worth maybe 25 cents or they're throwaways. And Pokemon, I know they call them common cards, and you can buy common cards for 25 cents, 50 cents. You have a big long box for those. But as an investor going into this, how often do cards become worth something, or is the majority just common?
So, that's an interesting thing. As an investor, I mentioned earlier that you can make there are multiple ways to make money off the card game, and selling bulk is one of them. Selling bulk and buying bulk. Selling bulk because somebody somewhere is paying a penny for something. And the other way is you're investing in penny stock, and some of the cards, depending on if they rotate in the game or it just happens to be a sought after card that just bumped up in popularity, you could be spending, on a particular common, you buy it for 10 cents, but you're selling it for 50, or it could even jump up to $1. In some cases, and I can recall in Yu-Gi-Oh, a card I was paying a quarter for went to like $10.
Well, I was speaking to somebody earlier today, and he was saying he makes a lot of money on what he calls junk. So he actually prefers to buy a lot of the commons for next to nothing. And then when he goes to conventions like you did, that seems to be where the money is because that's what most people pay. Is that a true statement?
Yes.
So it's not always trying to find the rare Charizard. It's about quantity when you're investing then.
No, just because The way I view it is like through the lens of the, my customer, and how I view it's, if I'm a parent who's, my kids just ask me like, hey, I want some Pokemon. There's some deals where I'd rather get 100 cards for $10 or $20 as opposed to like a pack or 2 packs for like $20. So in that case, it's quantity over quality, if that makes any sense.
I guess what I'm saying is it quantity that makes your house payment, or is it the rares that make your house payment?
Oh no, in all honesty, it's the junk that makes you the money.
Exactly. That's what the guy from the comic book was telling me. It's the junk that actually pays most of the bill. So as an investor, it's not always about trying to find that rare card that you're going to wear as a necklace or show off. If you're going to flip these things and you want to make money off of it, it's actually the common cards where you can get for next to nothing or free, and then you can sell them in mass quantity.
Yes, but it does take work, like specifically, getting the bulk of doing stuff like that with the commons and stuff like that, acquiring it one thing and then figuring out how you're going to sell it or where you're going to sell it, because not everybody has a chance to go to a convention to sell cards.
That is true, but they offer these things on eBay and different other avenues where you can buy a box of cards with like 500 cards.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And I don't know how popular that is. I know at conventions, okay, it's different. Obviously, it's a different character. But if we're speaking, not everybody can pay $500 for a booth, and whatever the
That's
cost
true.
is, depending on what you're doing. So if you're trying to do it affordably and make money on it, eBay and other avenues, Facebook, because people do that. So is that more popular to say, look, I have 200 Pokemon cards in this white box. I'm going to sell it to you. Maybe there's a good card, maybe there's not. This is where the value is? Or is it, you know what, I'm going to invest in this year's promo card, which is a Charizard or a Pikachu, because I think this rare card value is going to quadruple.
So, just speaking for a beginning investor, I think it's best to go with the strategy of, you know, investing in the iconic cards, like the Pikachu's, the Charizards, or just things that you like, in the Pokemon game. Because as an investor, particularly in Pokemon, you have to like Pokemon in some way. Something has to draw you to it for you to want to invest. So stick to what you know, particularly in this game. And you can't go wrong with investing in the iconic cards as a beginning investor.
And the iconic cards, outside of Pikachu, who else would you say is iconic? The ones people are always asking about.
Any of the base set starters like Blastoise, Charizard, Venusaur. Then you have your legendary Pokemon like Mew and Mewtwo, and then there's other varieties from different generations. But the most sought after art is Pikachu, and various Charizards. Charizard has to be the number one.
And recently, my son is now learning how to read these cards since I bought a bunch from you. So learning about the symbols, it tells you whether it's a rare card, not a rare card, and it has a number. I guess that number is like art, where it says this is number 31 of 100. I'm assuming that's how that works. Would you say those are more sought after than everything else, or is that more of a gimmick to get people buying?
It's pretty random, particularly like the symbols on the bottom. The only one you're really looking for is if it's a rare, and that's the star symbol. But it has no bearing on whether or not it's going to be a good card, because some rares are worthless, whereas some commons might be short print and they're actually worth money. Uh, so the symbols kind of matter, but they don't at the same time.
Okay, so
So
he shouldn't get too excited every time he sees a star.
not too excited, because some of them unfortunately are going to be junk.
And what's the difference between half art versus full body art on cards? Why does that matter? If the art is good, does it really matter if it's a full body or half art?
For some cards, particularly a full art matters. Other cards, just because they're not full art doesn't affect the price or anything. It's the price is just what it is. But full art tend to be more money. I kind of like full art myself, so I'm drawn to them more, I guess. their detailing is much more intricate. You can actually, if you feel them, they're like ridged, and you can feel the difference in the card and the way it's printed. So that's why, that's why they're preferred, that, in my opinion.
And with the rare cards they have so many different names: secret rare, rainbow rare, this rare, that rare. Is it just a way to sell things, or does it have value? Is there truly a difference between the rare, or is this just a game they're playing?
No, actually, there is a difference in pricing because some cards are just printed as a super rare. So it's basically a rare that just happens to be holographic. That could be worth $5, but that same version in a full art could be worth $20. So it's a gimmick, I guess you could say. But Pokemon doesn't print cards necessarily for the secondary market, so they don't care if you can play in their game uh, that's what they want essentially. So
And then the term tag team cards, they worth the investment? And what are tag team cards?
okay, so tag team cards. To answer your second question first, they are worth the investment for sure, for sure. Now to answer your first question, their tag team cards were printed in a particular set. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it should say tag team on the pack. You can probably find these at your local Dollar General. Majority of them are are tag team packs, but a lot of them are character cards with two Pokemon on it. So one of them, for example, is like Pikachu and Zekrom, which is a legendary electric dragon type Pokemon, and Pikachu. So it's two electric types on a card, and that one is a good promo.
What do you think of like the golden Pikachu? Because my friends right now are obsessed with like trying to get one of them in their collection. I know it's like a super rare card, but do you think it's like worth the hype to get a golden Pikachu in your collection?
Are we talking about the ones that are made out of like tin, the
Mm-hmm.
gold tin ones?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, those. If I would grab 100,000 of them if I could. It's total for me, just because cards like that are, it's a weird rare printing in terms of it's printed on some type of metal. I would like to get as many as I can, honestly.
So are people, when they buy these cards, there's two ways. You can play the game. I don't know if a lot of people understand this, but Pokemon is actually a game. It's not a card. It's like poker or anything else. It turned into this collectible like baseball cards. So when people buy these cards, are they actually using them in the games, or are they now just buying them to collect them?
Okay, so just to clarify, majority of the people who are buying Pokemon cards right now, I would say, are the collectors, but the other majority is buying them to play in the official card game tournament, where they're playing with pre-constructed decks of their making against each other in a knockout tournament style format.
And do you play in any of these tournaments?
I don't play in Pokemon particularly because I only know the game in theory, not like to actually play it. I have played other card games and played at multiple regionals and national championship levels.
Do you think Pokemon is going to be here to last, or do you think it's replaceable?
Hmm. That's tough to say, only because not nothing lasts forever. That's for sure. And then the second thing that makes me doubt that that it could die is Pokemon is always making different Pokemon. So as long as they can do that, they should be selling Pokemon cards forever. Uh, and they've been doing it so far right now for the last 20 plus years. They're a $1 billion company. And as long as they can keep creating content, sky's the limit for them.
Yeah.
But like anything else, it could become stagnant and they just run out of ideas.
Yeah, I know they're coming out with like the new Detective Pikachu in 2024, and like the cartoon movies are doing really well too. Which I feel like that always drives like the prices up when like they're coming out with like a new movie or new shows. Have you seen that in your area when a new cartoon or movie comes out there, like the price increases?
Um, you know, Pokemon, particularly with new sets coming out, it usually hypes up a lot of the cards in competitive play that might, change the game, or some players uh, think that it could do well, so it affects the market. Particularly in my area, most of the sales are online for stuff like this. But also, Pokemon's affected by, they're releasing a game for it as well. You mentioned the Detective Pikachu movie, but they're also coming out with a new game for the Nintendo Switch, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, I think. And that's going to have a whole new set of Pokemon that we've never seen before. I believe it's going to be a new 100 plus Pokemon. And then they're going to release new cards to promo that set. So that's going to be interesting to see what's going to be the good cards from that set.
Speaking of the video games, Nintendo has control of all Pokemon games that come out. Do you think Pokemon would make more money if it was on Xbox and PlayStation as well? Or is just being on Nintendo Switch, because that is the number one selling device, good enough to advertise Pokemon?
Man, that is tough to answer. I think Pokemon does a really good job of advertising on its own, because Pokemon's into a lot of stuff. It's particularly where it's made in Japan. It's a huge part of their economy. Like what they're known for is Pokemon. They have Pokemon Center. They have cafes. I'm pretty sure there's Pokemon sponsored chocolate. They have plenty of ways to make money.
Yeah. Japanese anime are really good. Because I watch a lot of Japanese anime, and I'm always surprised. Now this is going back and a kind of a different topic, but I'm always surprised to see that how Pokemon really like skyrocketed. And at that time, they also came out with this other show called Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm not sure if you're familiar with those cards, but the Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards never really skyrocketed just like how Pokemon did. So I think if there's always the interest, and especially people my age, like us millennials, we love Pokemon. I think,
and we have money now.
yeah, we're always gonna go and be like, oh, cool, Pokemon, and then like I remember this. I remember like watching TV shows and like sitting in my cartoon and like waking up early on a Saturday morning and like turning on the TV on channel 11, and there it is.
And Pokemon does a really good job of, they have movies on their Pokemon network. They have plenty of short movies that they play. So I think they're going to keep cranking out content, especially with the new set coming out.
Yeah.
There's loads of possibilities for that and loads of movies to riff off of that.
And their storyline is always great too. So that helps as well, because like it's not something redundant. They're always changing it. So yeah, I guess you're right. If they keep bringing out content, the interest will always be there.
Oh no, I was going to say another thing people don't realize is with Pokemon, a lot of people do assume because it's so big here in the United States, when they buy the books or they're watching the movies or the animation shows, this is all done in Japanese, the original content. And when you're buying the books, you're actually reading manga books. And a lot of people may not know what manga books is.
I'm surprised you know what that is.
But manga books is kind of where it started at. And that is where people, when they buy these things, I think their interest starts from these books. I could be wrong, or it could start from the cards. I don't really know, or it could be the cards to the books. But it seems like people forget that this is not a United States thing. This actually all started and originated in Japan, and is still being created in Japan, not here.
Oh, for certain. It's got a stronghold, where it was created, and that's in Japan. And also, Nintendo's does a good job of catering their content and their product for children. And for any business, that's good, because the younger and younger your audience is, the more opportunity you have to sell to them.
Yeah.
I kind of tell people when they're diversifying their investments that this is kind of like investing in Japanese type investments. So you're actually investing in things outside the United States that have a power. Where we have baseball cards, basketball cards, comic books. That's primarily United States, as we all know, stocks and bonds. But this is definitely 100% Japanese. They're investing in this.
Oh, it is indeed 100%.
And should people as an investment standpoint, my son has gotten excited about the Japanese cards that are not written in English. They're in Japanese. Would you say buying the Japanese cards are worth more than buying the American?
So there's two schools of thought on that. the Japanese cards are why they're worth as much as they are is because of some of the artwork. You know, when they're printed here, they tend to be what's the word I'm looking for here? Uh, Scaled down in terms of the artwork that they're allowed to do. So our cards here are more PG-13, where some of the cards that are printed in Japan could be, I guess you could say, rated R for some of their cards. So some of those are highly sought after. But majority, other side is that the American print is the best print. But like I said, there's some artwork, like the Japanese artwork of an American card is totally different, and each person has their own style. So some prefer the Japanese over the American. My preference is the American because it just sells better here.
So as an investor, you would prefer buying the American cards versus the Japanese cards just because of how easier it is to sell, or the value? Which one goes up more in value, Japanese versus
American, American goes up more, and also the problem with investing in Japanese cards is just the cost to get them because shipping's crazy right now.
American? And if I'm correct, currently, as of today, people may not know this, but there's actually 908 Pokemon species that are available. So there's more than just Mews and Charizards and Pikachus. There's a whole plethora of other cards. So outside of the ones we hear about all the time, who would you say is undervalued that we should be looking at?
It's really tough to say. There's some cards that I've been picking up. I guess you could say is just an iconic card. It's Charizard, but a sleeper card, I guess you could say, is Gengar's. And if you're not familiar with that, it's a ghost type Pokemon that's been on the show multiple times. If you're currently watching the new Netflix series Pokemon Journeys, which is a great show by the way, Gengar is featured in there a lot. So the Gengar card to me is super underrated. So if you have the chance, Gengar cards, are worth the investment now.
And with promo cards, going back to this, I know there's competitions, and when you win that competition, you're able to get these rare promo cards. Is that the only way to get the promo cards firsthand, besides buying them in the secondary market, or how else do you get promo cards?
So Pokemon does various things for you to get promo cards. The first one is the one you just mentioned is playing in their physical card tournament. You can get some amazing promos playing the physical card game. The other way is they have events that happen. They particularly because it is a Japanese product. For example, the Japanese New Year they released Pikachu promo with wearing a kimono that was only released at the Pokemon Center in Japan. So you have to be physically in Japan at the Pokemon Center at this particular time to be able to get this promo. So majority of the time you have to be there in person, and then the other time that you could get them potentially is like you mentioned before on the secondary market or through eBay or something.
Tell me 5 cards you think everyone should have.
Oof, that's tough, just to name 5. But off the top of my head, here we go. Charizard's, Mewtwo, Lugia cards. Did I say Pikachu? If I did, Pikachu. And to me, the card that I like personally, is Snorlax cards. So that last one could be for any Pokemon you're choosing. There's no right or wrong answer for this particular question. But me, I like Snorlaxes.
Thank you so much for your time and information. And we're going to add your information to the end of this podcast. So if people want to look you up, they can email you, contact your store to buy and trade whatever they want.
We're always buying, selling, and potentially trading if you're in the area.
And if the next time you're at a convention, send me your convention schedule. I'll also put that in the podcast information so people can come by, stop by, and say hi. And if somebody mentions this podcast, can they get a discount?
Yeah, if you mention the podcast, you get 10% off your first order.
Actually, I do have one more question though, because we were talking about promos earlier, and I have a Japanese Halo promo, and I was just wondering, what do I do with it? Personal question.
Japanese Halo promo?
Yeah.
Your best bet is to check eBay, and if not eBay, there's plenty of other groups on Facebook that you can join, and a lot of the communities for the card games are, generally pretty good about answering questions and give you like a good valuation of some people who probably traded or sold some of their cards in a previous deal. So you can get some good information in some of the groups, but your best bet is eBay.
eBay, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to seeing you at the next Comic-Con convention. My son definitely would love to meet you. Thank you so much for your time. We'll talk to you soon.
I appreciate it, you guys.
Hey, thank you for listening.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit subscribe and leave a review.
And we'll see you next time at Investor Coffee Shop.